Hello, and welcome back to the Jason Bull Travel Podcast. This is episode 5, part 2. Jason and Charlie are right in the middle of seasons.
So let's take a look at our next season. We're going to look a little bit at autumn and the colours and how that kind of affects everything around. So it's kind of described kind of like magical in Japan, having the autumn season. So why are the autumn leaves so spectacular and how is it different to anywhere else?
I would say it's because the autumn colours, the koyo in Japan, just take over so much of the country during this time. Now, not too long ago, it used to be the autumn colours would sort of spring into life around sort of October through November. That's actually moved on a bit now, so actually the best time to see that is probably more around November and sort of getting in slightly to December time. So November is probably the time to go to see them in their full majesty, I'd say. But I think we've already discussed in Japan in terms of the mountains that just take over, because Japan is about 70% mountainous. So actually, sort of when you go into the countryside, whether that's the Japanese Alps or one of the smaller islands, then you will see just the variety of these colours in their full force, and it's breathtaking just to see just the scope of this kind of like untamed land, just filled with these reds, these yellows, these golds, just going on for miles and miles. I mentioned about the momiji, which is the kind of the Japanese, famous kind of red leaf. Essentially, that's sort of like you'll see in certain areas, and these are gorgeous. And there's also an amazing park in Tokyo that has just that with a tree that turns kind of bright gold, and it's sort of standing kind of like out by itself. A colleague of mine actually went to Japan in December, that's when it was, where she was able to take this picture, and it just looked unreal. It looked otherworldly almost. It was breathtaking. Actually, speaking slightly biased in terms of, not necessarily if we kind of put my favourite season, summer, to one side, but if you're looking at the two peaks between cherry blossoms or autumn leaves and asking which I prefer, I would probably go with autumn leaves, just because you've got, one, a longer period of time to enjoy it, and two, I just feel like in terms of the scope, when you've kind of got a full vista in front of you and you've got all of the autumn leaves, it's gorgeous. It's so amazing to see and sort of take in, and I think it just sort of has that slight advantage over the cherry blossoms, just because it is a very finite time that you can see the cherry blossoms, but the autumn leaves are so amazing.
Is there a certain region that stands out as best to help kind of see it? Because there's mountains everywhere, right?
I mean, there are mountains everywhere. Yeah, I'd say that if you're doing a kind of a first-time visit to Japan, if you're looking at sort of like following kind of the best of Japan route, sort of starting off in Tokyo and then working your way west, it's always good to try and spend as much time in the countryside. So if you're sort of planning a few days in the Japanese Alps, that's you get some amazing views from over there. But also going down to, and I'm always going to try and plug it, Shikoku, because that was where I saw some amazing sights, like for weeks on end. So if you're making the journey to Shikoku, and if you're travelling by train, of course, if you want to rent a car, then you kind of do have a bit more flexibility, but trains are absolutely fine in Shikoku as well. But you would go from the mainland of Okayama, which is directly north of Shikoku, and then you can get there via the bullet train, and then you would take a limited express down from Okayama over the inland sea, and then into the heart of Shikoku, kind of going through the valleys and seeing rivers underneath, and then sort of taking in the sights around there. And there are so many traditional inns kind of buried into the mountains. So actually, if you've got a couple of nights in a ryokan with the kind of the full vista in front of you, potentially while you're bathing in an outdoor bath, how could you beat that? It's incredible.
Yeah, sounds incredible. So I'm so sorry. I was just I was listening so intently to what you're saying. Then I was so engrossed in it, I completely lost track of where I was. So move along into our winter and our snow and serenity, a nice, lovely season. Yeah, and this is where I think every time I mention like winter and Japan, I just remind myself of a TV program that was recorded. I think it was by BBC. It was Wild Japan, and it was just so amazing to watch. Up in the mountains, the monkeys, everything else going on, even the birds up there in the winter seasons, and It was just phenomenal. It's probably one of my favourite documentaries. That is, it's just fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, that wasn't a question. I was just yeah. So winter obviously brings a completely different type of scene. So you've obviously got skiing. You've got your snow festivals. What are the main highlights that you see for winter?
So I think the number one highlight is sorry, excuse me. The number one highlight I would say is well, it's the down season. You're going outside of those peaks, so it's always going to be the fewer crowds because like the fewer the crowds, the better the experience. I think skiing and snowboarding has become increasingly popular in Japan, and in Japan you do get some outstanding powder. So for any snow bunnies listening, it is a really great option, and there's a few different places that you can go to enjoy that. The best place is in the northern island of Hokkaido, just outside of the main city of Sapporo. There's a town called Niseko, which is very popular for skiing and snowboarding. But if you are more limited on time, then actually the Japanese Alps, which is where the Olympics were held quite sorry, excuse me, a little bit of time ago, then that's going to be a bit closer to home. So that's kind of just northwest of Tokyo. So there's a few different spots. Now, while the powder is very good, I would say that if you're travelling from the UK and you only want to do skiing or snowboarding, it is quite a long way to go for really good powder. So I would always argue to say, right, yeah, absolutely, have a few days on the slopes, enjoy this powder and that experience, but do make sure that you're also taking advantage of the rest of Japan while you're there, seeing the city, seeing the smaller towns, having a culture adventure on top of your skiing and snowboarding experience, I think is really crucial to really make the most of your time, because if you're only going for skiing and snowboarding, I feel like you're missing out on an awful lot that Japan has to offer during this time. And we have mentioned onsen, so hot spring baths, especially under our accommodation episode. So if you'd like to find out more, have a re-listen of that episode. But nothing feels better than an onsen, a hot spring bath, after a day on the slopes. If you're feeling a bit beaten up by the mountain and a bit bruised, and then sinking into a piping hot bath on a cold day is incredible. It's so incredible. It's such a nice thing to do. I think on top of that as well, we talked about festivals in Japan, largely being in the summer. There is a very popular festival that happens in the winter in Japan, which is the Snow Festival, which you mentioned, which takes place in Sapporo. So actually you could do this more or less around the same times as if you were like visiting Niseko for the skiing and snowboarding. Now the Snow Festival it's insane. It's incredible. So the big sort of highlight of that is this, like the ice sculptures that they have, and that sort of takes over the central park essentially of Sapporo City. And you've got these kind of like just these almost life-sized carvings of things like Japanese temples, Japanese castles, characters. A really popular one that sort of hit the media was this huge carving of Darth Vader, sort of with his lightsaber out, looking really menacing, and it's kind of 10, 15, 20 meters tall almost. But they are just so detailed, and they put so much time into kind of creating these sculptures that actually kind of going round during that festival and sort of having something hot to drink or eat as you're sort of walking around the park and just taking in these sights is remarkable. And if you stick around until the evening, then that's when they kind of light them up as well. So it's a really cool festival that obviously you can only do in the summer as well. I think with Japan in the summer as well, there's some important things to know about Hokkaido. So if you're planning to go skiing and snowboarding, then the routes to get to the area will be open, of course, to allow sort of passage to the slopes. But if you wanted to explore the rest of Hokkaido and see the wildlife at that time, or kind of go on things like an ice-breaking cruise, or seeing kind of the true sort of wild Japan up in the north, it does become incredibly tricky to organise by yourself, largely because a lot of the roads will be closed just to the amount of snowfall in that on that island. So if you are thinking about checking out the wilds of Hokkaido, then luckily there is a small group tour which we'll be talking about next week that will be able to take you through a safe passage through that amazing island. But going by yourself, it does become quite tricky just because of the amount of snowfall during that time. But there are lots of highlights. But again, I would stress, don't make sure that your whole time in Japan during that trip is being monopolized by skiing and snowboarding. Do make sure that you're going through the rest of Honshu, the kind of mainline Japan, and then seeing Japan at a quieter time, and sort of having a lot of places, not necessarily to yourself, but seemingly to yourself compared to the spring.
So what would be your one meal you'd recommend, or one food type you'd recommend then for a nice winter meal?
Nabe, I'd say. Nabe.
Nabe.
Like a hot pot, like a Japanese hot pot. It's so comforting and so warming. If you can combine that with maybe a few glasses of hot sake as well, so a couple of hot sakes, and some nabe, like a hot pot deal, you're laughing. you're great. Always, when I was eating that, it always sort of reminded me of my very Scottish grandmother, sort of saying, like, if you eat your porridge, you'll be warm for the rest of the day. And it's the same with nabe.
Awesome. If you love to travel, you are going to need a travel agent. And if you want the best travel agent, you are going to need Boolies Travel. Boolies Travel can help you with any kind of holiday wherever you want to go in the world, taking care of every last detail. From package holidays through to fully customized itineraries where you are completely in control of where you go and what you do. And the best part, there are no charges whatsoever. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. Start your next adventure right now by going to booliestravel.com. So, looking at our planning of it now, and if somebody's really flexible, and maybe they've been to Japan before, although we're going to cover that off next week as well. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they don't know much about Japan, but they know they want to go to Japan. How would you kind of recommend choosing the best season for their trip?
That's such a great question. I think everyone's going to come with a slightly different angle and different times that they can go. I mean, I already mentioned about those who are traveling with kids and they're going as a family. They might be restricted to those holiday. Well, they will be restricted to those holiday dates, and sort of planning around that. So I think sort of being pretty upfront and saying these are the dates that we've got, and then sort of mentioning any flexibility when they're having a chat with you, Jason, I think is really good, because then we can feed that back and then sort of like work around those dates that they've got. But if you've got a bit more flexibility in terms of timings, then it opens up so many more options in terms of traveling. So actually working out the best times of year to go for you and what you'd like to see and experience in Japan, I think is really crucial as well. So I think number one is think about your flexibility, where you can sort of make those things. And number two is what would bring Japan to life most for you. Because if you're dying to see a Japanese festival, let's say like the Gion Matsuri in Kyoto, or my favourite, the Yosakoi, which is a dance festival in Kochi City, then of course your dates are going to be less flexible. You want to see that, but during set times you need to kind of be in the cities for those times. But if you're kind of you want to have a sort of an overall introduction to Japan, and you're not particularly concerned about one element or another, but you just want a full picture of as much as Japan can offer you, that opens up the doors even further. So I would say that if you're dying to go to Japan and you're really particularly keen to see the cherry blossoms, then that's great. They are magical, but you will be sort of limited in terms of other things, in terms of like fewer crowds and different experiences that you might be able to take advantage of. So kind of like have a think about what would bring Japan to life for you. If you need any help, like I say, have a re-listen of these episodes to point you in the right direction. But think about what's going to make Japan the most special trip for you. And we don't need to have a full kind of detailed list, just some overall topics. And then that's something that we can then run with and then design a trip that's perfect for you, your partner, your family, whoever you're traveling with. If you're going by yourself, whatever you need, just sort of let us know what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. We already discussed that different times, different seasons are busier than others. So how far in advance should people be really planning to get the seasons that they want?
So that's a really good question as well to think about. So I think if you're looking to go during the cherry blossom season or the autumn leaves. It's usually about sort of 12 months in advance is probably the earliest that we can start booking accommodation, particularly those kind of family-owned, those independent inns and things like that. They usually have, they open up sort of their booking windows to about 12 months in advance during those peak seasons. So I'd say sort of a year in advance is a really good time to start planning a trip and potentially start getting things initially booked in as well, just to make sure that you can secure them, because if you leave it later, then we can't always guarantee your first pick of accommodation options or even experiences, because Japan does get incredibly busy during those times. So I would say about 12 months in advance, you'll have your best chance of kind of getting the peak seasons. If you're looking to go off peak seasons, so the shoulder seasons, then you can potentially look at about 18 months in advance, because that's when those kind of windows open up for those other places. So sort of looking at an 18-month window. I think with Japan, it's not a destination that you simply go online and book there and then. If you're looking for a tailor-made experience, there needs to be, there's a lot of thought that goes into your personal bespoke trip, and a lot of love and attention as well. So in order to have kind of make sure that we're sort of crafting the experience that's unique and right for you, sort of 18 months to start planning, I think, probably for those off-peak seasons, and then about 12 months for the peak seasons, I think, is really crucial. Of course, we can always look into dates that are a bit closer to home. I would stress that if you're looking to travel next week, that's incredibly difficult, and I can't promise that's going to be possible. But certainly, like if you're looking at 2-3 months in advance, then I'm sure we can see what we can do. But again, the earlier you book, the more chance you'll have your top pick of accommodation and experiences.
Yeah, there's not to forget as well. You have to get there by plane generally. So
yes, unless you're taking the long boats, then yes, plane.
Yes, exactly. Then the longer you leave it, the more booked up the planes are, and we all know when planes get fuller, they get more expensive.
Exactly.
Which is a backwards mentality, but there we go. That's planes for you. So yeah, if you get the planes as soon as they come on sale, you're going to get a far better deal with that. But leaving it last minute, you're going to obviously pay top price for it. So that brings us to the end of episode 5. And as Charlie has said multiple times throughout this episode, there are 4 previous episodes and there's one more to come after this one as well. So if anything you like the sound of in here is grabbing you, and you want to really learn more about Japan, then absolutely go back, listen to the whole lot, because there is so much information in these episodes. So that's why we do them. We want to do them to bring you a lot more information, to help you plan your trips, to help you get the most out of your experience, because you're going a long way around the world. You're going very, very far. It's not easy to get there. Make it count. Yeah. Don't just have a trip, have a proper experience and really make it count for you. And that's exactly what we can do here. So you were just saying earlier about the planning of the trip and how far in advance you have to do it, and something that always strikes me is whenever we are talking to you guys and put a trip together for a customer, there's always so many deeper questions that get asked, and instead of just being a date or this or that, there's always lots and lots of questions, and there's lots of thought that comes back as well. You can tell that every single quote isn't just a rubber stamp of another one and a copy and paste. It's absolutely built from scratch for everybody. You obviously do tours, but as well as that, it's which we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But every time is customized. There's so much time that goes into building it, and you try and imagine how much time would it take somebody who knows nothing about Japan. It must take them literally months of their life of constant searching, and they still wouldn't know half of the stuff that you guys just know like that.
Oh my god, I mean, and even with the rise in things like AI for kind of planning itineraries, I was speaking with a friend that, and we sort of met over a drink and sort of outlining their plans for Japan, and they'd already they'd put quite a few of their kind of requirements about Japan into AI, and they were kind of fed back this itinerary, and it was, to be honest, it was still very generic. I think there's a long way before AI can kind of like catch up just to the level of specialism that you can find here that's perfectly tailored for you, and the experiences and accommodation and the routing and things that most people don't go about. I mean, like I say, in terms of like 80% of people going to those top 10 destinations, I think AI may be feeding that a little bit more without much consideration in terms of spreading the love across Japan, especially to those under-visited destinations that we're putting a lot of work into.
Yeah, and you can never feel.
Yeah.
AI can never feel. It doesn't know. It doesn't experience.
There's no
It
heart.
just just reads and regurgitates, you know.
Yeah.
And it's getting better, but it's such a long way off. It's like travel is always an emotional experience, and when you're helping people to travel and you're booking it, people are really excited by it. They want to do it. They want to get out on that trip, and you have to make it magical for them, and you have to bring it together.
Completely agree. I mean, there's so much kind of like love that goes into like a personal trip, and the number one souvenir that anybody can take away from any trip that they take are the stories that you bring back with you. And if your story is essentially just the same as every other bugger that's gone, then it's not particularly engaging, and it's not particularly personal to you. But if you've got something that only you can talk about, that's where it becomes so valuable.
That's a magic of life, that is, right there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Thank you, Charlie. So please make sure that you comment on the podcast, rate it as well if you could. As I said at the beginning, to help other people find it. If you know anyone who's planning a trip, share this with them. Tell them about the podcast. Send it over to them, however they like to view. We're on 19 or 20 different portals. So yeah, just wherever you search it, search a Jason Bull Travel Podcast, you will absolutely find us on your preferred listening device. So thanks for joining us, and don't forget to follow so you can hear next week's episode that will be coming out, which will be about revisits and small group tours in Japan. And I have to stop you from talking because you're going to go straight into it, Charlie. I know you are.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting ready.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, and look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.